Okay, so for this lesson, we will have the rest of the other types of lipids. Okay, so another type of lipid are the waxes. Okay, so waxes are made by combining fatty acids with long chain alcohols. So you have a fatty acid here and it's attached to an alcohol. That is the structure of a wax. So it's basically because you have a fatty acid, which is a carboxylic acid and alcohol. So they're actually esters. Waxes are actually esters. So remember, if you recall from your organic chem, the reaction of a carboxylic acid with an alcohol produces an ester. Okay, that's RC double bond OOR. This is the general structure of an ester. So a wax is actually an ester. So this is what you call as the fatty acid residue, and this is the alcohol residue. Kay gikan siya sa alcohol and then gikan siya sa fatty acid. So if you notice, ang wax are very hydrophobic. So meaning they are very nonpolar because of this very long chain of fatty acid and alcohol. So again, they are very hydrophobic, and these waxes are used by plants and animals for protective and waterproof coatings. So that's why you have beeswax, carnauba wax, insect wax. So those are actually lipids. Okay, so beeswax, we use that in candles. Carnauba wax, we use that for furnitures, diba? And insect wax, we use that for polishing. So these are the structures. So this C double bond OO, this is the ester bond. Okay, and this one here might be the alcohol most likely, and this one is the carboxylic acid portion. So these are very hydrophobic. Another type of lipids are the phospholipids and glycolipids. Now, these lipids are what we call as the membrane lipids, because these lipids are the main components of biological membranes. So these are the membrane lipids. So like the soaps, these molecules are highly amphipathic, meaning na sila polar, niya napod sila non-polar nga portion or moiety. And so when they are mixed with water, they spontaneously form membranes that are described as lipid bilayers. Okay, so mao ni ang structure niya. So kanang kung sa soap pa to, they form micelles, diba? So mao ni ang formations of micelle. Ang soap is that ang water mo attract siya sa polar head o nya magkumpol, so mag-aggregate ang non-polar nga tail. So that's how the soap works, diba? This is what you call as the micelle. For phospholipids and glycolipids class, they are the major component of cell membrane. So ang buhaton nila is that they form lipid bilayers. So those are phospholipid bilayers because these are made of phospholipids. So nadiri ang polar head, and this is the non-polar tail. Okay, so ang function sa phospholipid class is that they are part of cell membranes and they act as emulsifiers. Okay? And these phospholipids are not dietary essential. These meaning we don't need to take in. Okay? It's not we don't need to take in phospholipids from the diet because these are made by the liver. Okay? So again, this acts as like emulsifiers because they have polar head and a hydrophobic tail. So mo nang maka-emulsify po sila because they are attracted to water, or they are attracted to polar molecules, and here they are attracted to non-polar. Okay? So there are two types of phospholipids. So these are phospholipids, okay? So we have a glycerophospholipid, and we also have a spingophospholipid. So the other one is a spingophospholipid, sorry. This one is a sphingophospholipid or sphingolipid, sorry. Yes, this is sphingolipid. So the difference between these two class, these are two types of phospholipid, okay? Glycerophospholipid and a sphingolipid. Now the difference between these two class is they are highly different in structure. So instead of the glycerol, diba, this, let's start with triglyceride. So sa triglyceride, from triglyceride na kay glycerol, so this is glycerol, and then you have fatty acid chains, tulo ka fatty acid chains. In phospholipid, glycerophospholipid, in a glycerophospholipid, you have glycerol and you have two fatty acid chains, but the other fatty acid chain is removed. So nawagtang na, and then it was replaced with phosphate and an alcohol. Sa sphingolipid class, it's still a type of phospholipid, but a sphingolipid is different. It's now replaced with this spingosine. So this is a spingosine. There's no more glycerol, one fatty acid, and then phosphate and alcohol. Okay? So, gikan ta sa triglyceride, atong gi-replace ang fatty acid. Ang isa ka fatty acid, gi-replace nato with this one. So, nahimo siyang glycerophospholipid. Gikan sa glycerophospholipid, ang kini nga portion atong gi-replace with spingosine. So, we now have a sphingolipid. Okay? So, first, ang glycerophospholipids. So, let's go to glycerophospholipids first. They have a structure similar to triglycerides, as I've said, diba? Except nga giilisan sila og phosphate og alcohol ang isa ka fatty acid. So that is a glycerophospholipid. Meaning glycerophospholipid. Okay? Because it has a phosphate and alcohol. And then this glycerophospholipid class can be modified if we modify this lang. So depending on unsa kung ibutang dire, it will change the glycerophospholipid. So that is why we have phosphatidyl ethanolamine. So that is if we use this one, then mao na yung tawag phosphatidyl ethanolamine, because this is an ethanolamine. Kini phosphatidylcholine because this is a choline molecule. So ato nang i-change og choline. And then phosphatidylserine because this is a serine nga molecule. Okay, so everything, this one is called a phosphatidyl, and then isumpay nimo depende kung unsa imong depende kung unsa nga molecule ang ki-replace dire. Okay? So phospholipids are commercially used as emulsifying agents. So in the aside from nang sa cell membrane, so commercially po, gi-use po na siya emulsifying agent. So, example na is a lecithin. So, lecithin is the same as phosphatidylcholine. So, kini siya. This one. It's actually just lecithin. So, ang lecithin is this structure, phosphatidyl nga structure, plus ang choline nga molecule. So, that's the lecithin. So, it's a common emulsifying agent in mayonnaise. Okay? Next, we have sphingolipids that they function. So this is the second type of phospholipid. So we have glycerophospholipid and sphingolipid, diba? So ang sphingolipid, they function similarly to the glycerophospholipid, but structurally they are different. So same ra sila kaayo og function. They're almost the same function with this. So phospholipids ni silang duha. These two are phospholipids, okay? They have the same function, but these two phospholipids have different structures. So, mo ni ang structure sa sphingosine class nga ni replace sa glycerol. Diba? Inani to. And then, ang diri, gi-attachan siya sa fatty acid. And then, this one, gi-attachan siya kanang oxygen. So, og X. So, ang X, we can change that. Mo na ang ma-modify na to. Pareho sa glycerophospholipid. Okay? So, ang difference niya class is that kini nga portion ug ang kini nga portion. Diba? So, ang sphingolipids, these are usually found in the myelin membranes that insulate the nerve cell. Okay? These are usually found sa brain. So, some sphingolipids are sugars. Use sugars for the alcohol portion. So, instead of using alcohol here, ang gigamit nila kay sugar. That is what we call as the glycolipids. So we will have a separate discussion on glycolipids later. So this is a sphingolipid. Okay, remember nga spingosine, nya fatty acid, nya phosphate, o X. That's a sphingolipid. Nya ang specific nga term, if you have sugar, if you use sugar here, ang specific nga term is called glycolipids. So, ang glycolipid is actually just a derivative of sphingolipid. Okay? So, these are derivatives of ceramides and spingosine with carbohydrate directly attached to the ceramide. So, ang ceramide class, it's the ang ceramide class is this portion. So the ceramide is this portion. Okay? Okay, so this portion is the ceramide, okay? This one, it's called the ceramide, okay? I think that's the ceramide. So, let's see. Yeah, that is the ceramide portion, okay? The ceramide does not include the phosphate. So, next, another type of lipid is the sterols. So, we're done with fatty acids, diba? We're done with that. Triglycerides. We're done with waxes, diba? We are done with phospholipids. So, from phospholipids, ang phospholipids na anay duha ka buok, we have Glycerophospholipid, and then from glycerophospholipid we also have a sphingolipid. Sphingolipid. And then ang kining sphingolipid, it could form a glycolipid, diba? Ang derivative na siya sa sphingolipid. Okay, now we go to sterols. So now we go to sterols. Okay? Ang sterols class, these are lipids. Mora ni ang nalahi sa mga lipids because this does not contain the long-chain fatty acid. Instead, they contain these 4 nga fused rings. Okay? So, ang precursor sa tanang sterols is the cholesterol. So, from this structure, this is the cholesterol structure. So, iya nang i-modify ang branching, ang double bonds. Modification of that leads to other sterols. Okay, so for example, we have vitamin D3. It's a sterol. Okay, so here, an example of steroids are cholesterol, sex hormones. So sterols and steroids are the same. Okay, so ang basta naa ganini kining 4 ka-fused rings, then it's automatically that is a steroid. Okay. So, okay, so ang cholesterol class, as you know, they build plaque in the lining of the arteries, diba? So these are also ang cholesterol. These are important cell components, and you will see in the video, in the lecture video for the cell membrane, unsa ang function sa cholesterol, because these structures, the cholesterol is actually present in the cell membrane, and it is helpful in the fluidity of the cell membrane. So this is the precursor of all other steroids. Okay, so here if you see here, this is the structure of cholesterol. Kini, diba? This is just the ball and stick model, so it's the same. So in the plasma membrane, if you have phospholipid here, diba? Mao ni ang phospholipid na to. So the plasma membrane is a phospholipid bilayer. Ha? It's not just any lipid bilayer, it's called a phospholipid bilayer. Okay, so nag-abot ang fatty acid tails. So actually, ang cholesterol, there are some cholesterol na naa sa in-between of those phospholipids. Okay, so this cholesterol is very important in maintaining the fluidity of the cell membrane. Okay, other examples of cholesterol, other example of steroids are these. So these are the sex hormones. So cortisol, aldosterone, so these are, tanawa nga gimodify lang nila ang, so they just modify this one, only this one, di ba? This. So they just some modifications on the attachments, on the double bond sa kanang sa this, like this one, double bond present in the ring. Okay, so that's an amazing thing how a few atoms nga i-change nato kay lain na siya og function, lain na siya og purpose, di ba? So ang steroids class or sterols are important part of sex hormones, vitamin D, bile. So katong ni aid sa fat digestion nga naa sa atong triglyceride nga lecture. So those bile are actually steroids. And we have adrenal hormones like cortisol, and of course cholesterol, which is the precursor of all these other sterols. Next, we have lipoproteins. So from the word lipoproteins, it's a mixture, it's a combination of lipid and protein. Okay? And the function of this class are to transport fat. Okay? So meaning, mao ni sila ang magdala sa fat. So we have 4 types of lipoproteins. So we have chylomicrons, we have VLDL, LDL, or HDL. So we have very low density lipoprotein, we have low density lipoprotein, and high density lipoprotein. So this is what we call as the good cholesterol, and this is what we call as the bad cholesterol. Okay? So again, here, lipoproteins are used to transport the water-insoluble lipids such as triglycerides, phospholipids, and cholesterol in the blood. So these are transport proteins or transport lipoproteins. Okay? So they transport these fats, these lipids, kining mga fatty nga lipids. Okay? Because these are water insoluble, so they need to be transported by something. So that something is called the lipoprotein. And so specifically, ang kining chylomicrons, they transport triglycerides gikan sa digestive tract. Okay? And we have LDL. These low density lipoproteins, they transport cholesterol, triglycerides, and phospholipids from the liver to the tissues. Okay, so gikan sa liver padungpod sa tissues. That's the purpose of LDL. Ang purpose sa HDL, they transport cholesterol and phospholipids back to the liver. So ang LDL, it's from the liver. Ang HDL, it's to the liver. Okay? So these are the health effects of lipids. So we have risks from trans fats. We also have risks from cholesterol. So trans fats, as you know, katong trans nga C double bond C, form sila almost linear, di ba? Because it forms almost linear, so this is more rigid, so they appear solid, and so they are the more harmful fat, di ba? So that's why when we have kanang sa mga advertisements, they advertise 0-gram trans fats, because trans fats are not kanang good for our health. We also are risky from cholesterol, so it's not good to eat too much cholesterol, to take too much cholesterol, and of course from saturated fats. We do not want saturated fats. Saturated fats are common in animal fats, okay, for animals, whereas unsaturated are common in plants. That's why it's always good to choose vegetable oil or a plant oil, any plant oil, compared to an animal oil. Okay, because that's mostly saturated fat if sa animal nga gikan nga oil. And then we have dietary cholesterol. So these are the dietary cholesterol for different products. So the health effect of lipids include the benefits from monounsaturated fats and polyunsaturated fats. So again, we prefer unsaturated compared to saturated. Okay, so especially we prefer the cis compared to the trans. Okay, and then benefits from omega-6 and omega-3. So these fatty acids are important, like the linoleic, diba? DHA, because they reduce blood cholesterol and help prevent cancer. So we also have these dietary recommendations for fats, of course. And these are the healthful fatty acids. So manang sa avocado, it provides good cholesterol. Peanut butter, from peanut also it provides good cholesterol. So nuts are actually good. They are healthful fatty acids. Okay, we have fatty fish. It's good, and these things, mayonnaise, salad dressing, they give us omega-6 polyunsaturated. Okay, so if you compare butter and margarine labels, you have butter, margarine. So here it's 36% saturated fat. This one, butter, that's butter, and then this is 10% saturated fat. And then margarine still. So margarine has lower saturated fat compared to this, diba? And then even this one, margarine nga solid, it's 10% saturated fat, but this one is only 6% saturated fat. So we can say nga this is partially hydrogenated because liquid na siya compared to this one which is solid, diba? So we can say nga ang some of these saturated fat have been some of the unsaturated fat have been they have been partially hydrogenated. So these are also fats. There are also fat substitutes. So we have oat trim, Z-trim. These are made from plant fibers. Okay, so we have fat-based. We call it as olestra, and this does not contribute to the calories because it passes through the body undigested, so it will not produce calorie. Okay, so fat substitutes, they promote weight loss and lower blood lipids, but they have to be used, of course, just like any other things, they have to be used in moderation. Okay.